Thanks, David. Appreciate that. First and foremost, welcome to Memory Hall Performance. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Pete has been involved, or Ministries, our parent company, our brand Pete has been involved with John Force Racing now for almost 11 years. And one of the reasons why we brought you here today is we look forward to NHRA's 75th anniversary and really kicking off John Force's 50th anniversary of Brute Force. We figured now is the time to bring back some of that history of John and really move that forward as we go down the road over the next few years here and really showcase what John has been a part of and really helping build the sport of NHRA Championship drag racing. So we brought you here today not only just to have a chance to talk to all the John Force Racing drivers, but also to get a glimpse of something that we're very proud of and something that we've been working on here for several months. The fans have asked for, going all the way back to 2021 when we put the Brute Force moniker back on John Force's car over the last several years. As you know, John, pre his championship days with John Brute Force, and over the last few years of his career has been John Brute Force. So with that in mind, we've got a couple things to go on show today.
Hey John, why don't you talk first, if you would, about your car there and how it relates to what we went to see here today.
Well, first, I want to thank NHRA and, of course, Cornwell, the sponsors of the race here in Indy, and I want to thank Pete. And I got a lot of sponsors. I'll get to them in a bit. But just want to thank all of you for being here. I appreciate it. And this is the original car back in the 70s. You've heard me say on TV, I've been on fire from here to Australia. I have. I started in Australia, and I came back, and this car I burnt to the ground. And then I went on and started building other cars as I went. And this was Pete and Molander's idea to bring back, even though Beckman was driving my car, it's okay, to bring it back and to do a specialty car at the 50. So I'm excited to be here. I realize that this is all my shop is on the other end of town, and I'm in LA. But Graham, all these cars, a lot of them are his, but a lot of them he rents this building out. So he's smarter than me. He makes money with his buildings. I give it away free. So Corey Watkins, raise your hand and say, just say that. Corey goes back with me 100 years. We had the good old days. So anyway, but this car I raced in Australia in 75, and then of course the winter was 76. Caught on fire out there. You've heard me say on fire from here to Australia. It really happened. Then I came back to Orange County and I burned it to the ground. And then Paisano sold me a car, and this is the new unveiling. I'll leave that to you. So we're just running a tribute. His idea to do a tribute, even though Beckman's driving my car. It's okay. I'm going to give it back to Mr. Moore.
All right, Jack, why don't you step on in there and tell us your thoughts on this.
First off, thanks, Brian, and Bob Williams here from Old World Racers and Pete. I'm trying to do a better job of living in the moment. Like you're always planning about what's the next race, what's the next thing that you need to do. And I think sometimes in life you just get to sit back and just kind of enjoy the moment. And it still strikes me that I'm driving John Force's funny car, in case you guys didn't catch that the two times he mentioned that. You know, if you look at the Peak Nitro funny car, there was only one person that ever drove it. And I still have those moments where, and Austin Rittman did this, you put your fire suit on and you're walking in the staging lanes, and sometimes if you have a different wrap on the car, like the Cornwell logo is going to be on both Austin and Rittman's cars this weekend. Somebody's got to look at your fire suit and get the car that matches the fire suit. And I looked up and I see Pete on my fire suit, and I'm like, yeah, I'm driving John Force's car. And last year was just for 8 races while John was recuperating, and he made the decision to sit out for this year as well. And we're chasing the championship, and Danny Hood and Chris Cunningham and Tim Fabrizi, the crew chiefs on the Pete car, are all out here this morning to help celebrate this. But I spent a lot of time in John's shop in Overland, California. It's only about 15 miles from my house, and Ashley, Brittany, and Courtney had all come through where I worked at the Frank Hall Drag Racing School to get their initial licenses before they stepped into the top alcohol and the nitro ranks. And Robert Hyde had come from there, and Lori Forrest got her license at the school. So consequently, I got to spend a lot of time around the Force family. And if you go into John's shop, and I don't know if you guys have a chance to look back here and see his shop is lined with all of his old drag race cars. And it's literally a trip through John Force history. And I think that what we're going to do this weekend is going to be monumental for the fans. And I think it's so damn cool to have John Force here. And I'm just going to tell you guys, the moment's not going to be lost to me. I'm going to enjoy this one. Friday, when we roll up there for the first qualifying session, that last pair of funny cars is going to be number 1 in the points and number 2 in the points. And our job is to lay one down for the fans. And it's a huge weekend coming up. And thanks to Pete and Old World Industries, we get to do something awesome for John. And when people say the greatest of all time, he's got the stats to prove it. I'm absolutely honored to get in that car. And starting tomorrow, we're going to start our track towards winning Indy. And that's about as big as it gets for a nitro driver. So thank you guys for showing up. Makes a big deal to us to have all of you out here to help document this.
All right, well, John, Jack, why don't you come over to this side here? Right over there. Classic little unveil on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
So a couple of things I want to point out on this car. Obviously, the colors were close, a little bit more of the pink blue on this. We picked up the group fours. This is a Pink Antifreeze logo from back in, it would have been time period, mid-70s all the way through the early mid-2000s. So if we're going to do this, we wanted to make sure that we were authentic all the way down to what a pink group force car would look like in 1975. We've got some other things for you too, but we'll save those for Friday night.
All right, 24 hours from the U.S. Nationals. Bit of a welcome surprise, I would say, for everybody, especially for you. You unveil this new body. You get to run a throwback to John's first ever funny car at the U.S. Nationals. Talk about how much this car means to you just to see it.
So I've been going to the drag races for 52 years. And 50 years ago, John was running this paint scheme. The actual car is sitting 30 feet from my fingertip right now. That car, the recreation, resides in Yorba Linda most of the time. Graham Rahal trucked it and 4 of John's other iconic, older, funny cars out here for a special display at Graham Rahal Performance. And this place is like a toy box. But for me, when I got the offer to drive full-time for John for 2025, I wanted, Paul Stoll does a lot of the helmets for John Force Racing. And when we were going to paint mine, him and Austin and I were brainstorming ideas, and we loved doing that Iron Gauntlet brute force deal there. And the first time, not for brute force, but that gauntlet was put on the car was that 1976 car, I think 50 years ago. So I painted my helmet like that. I had no idea the Peak was going to step up and gift John with this wrap for the U.S. Nationals as a tribute to the greatest drag racer of all time. It's it's a pinch me moment on top of a pinch me moment.
You talk about how much this car just means to you personally. Think about it. You're someone who loves the history of the sport, and you wrap yourself in it. To get to have a car like this to run at the biggest event of the year, for that little kid from California who grew up watching this car, what goes through your mind just thinking about seeing this car again, knowing that you're the one who gets to drive it?
When I went to my first drag race, which would have been Orange County, and then a couple years later, fast forward to when John would have been running this brute force car there, Don Perdome was the king of funny cars at that time. It was the Army Monza that year. And back then, nobody had a big rig. They had chaparral trailers and dualies, and they were parked sideways in the pits. So instead of only having 20 feet of access to the crew in the car, you had 70 feet of access. You could literally be as close as you and I are watching them work on the car. And a crew consisted of 4 people if it was a big-time team. And you'd see Perdome's layout there. Clean, professional, lots of guys working on the car, and you'd look over and see John Force's car, body off to the side, oil all around, dirty rags everywhere, and 2 guys working frantically on it. And to think that that guy and his tenacity and perseverance just never gave up. And by 1990, it resulted in a world championship. In the 2000s, he won 10 of them in a row and ended up with 16. And when he went out last year with the injury wreck at Richmond. At 75 years old, the guy had already won 2 races, and he was second in the points, only trailing his own car out there. So, but imagine Babe Ruth staying playing baseball till he was 75 and still hitting home runs. That's how much of a big deal John Force is, to get the saddle up and get in this car at Indy at the U.S. Nationals and have the boss standing next to the car. Again, it's the cherry on the whipped cream on the ice cream. It's just an amazing opportunity for me.
You know, to add on to this as well, you talk about you taking this one day at a time and just really enjoying the moment. To go from relationship with John, where you're racing against him kind of as a colleague, to where now you're embraced within this team as a full-fledged driver, like you're one of John's own. Does that almost mean more to you than just being able to say, I'm driving John Force's funny car?
So I think sometimes there's some moments that are so big. To use an analogy, you got to walk around them for a while. You got to stare at them from different angles because it's just too much to take in. And I think that's been my experience after sitting on the sidelines for over 3.5 years. And that followed a 14-year career driving for Don Schumacher, where I did way more than I ever dreamed I would do drag races. So I thought I was done. I thought I would finish my working career fixing elevators, and that was that. The sport had given me more than I'd ever asked for, more than I thought I would get. And then to get that phone call and get an opportunity to come back in 2024 for 8 races, just to earn points for John with his injury. I thought, how wonderful. And I got to win 2 races there. Then I thought I'd go back to fixing elevators. Then the phone call came, said, how about you drive the whole season in 2025? We'll go after the championship. I highly recommend this.
And as well, one of the deals that's so great about this is being able to work with somebody like Peak, who not only loves the sport, but also appreciates the history enough to go out there and do something like this. What was it like getting to work with Brian Bolander and the people at Peak to put something like this together for the U.S. Nationals?
So Peak belongs to Old World Industries, and Tom Hervis is the president there. And when we were sitting down with Tom Hervis at the Chicago race in his conference room, and he asked me, why did I think he picked John Force? He said, describe John Force in one word. Think about that. There's a lot of one-word descriptions of John. But Tom said it's passion. Passion is the word that I use to describe John Force. This is coming from the president of Old World Industries. And he recognized that in John, that push, that perseverance, that motivation, that ambition to be the best. And then once he achieved the best status, to continue to do it. He pushes all of us to be better. And it's a wonderful position to be in, to know that you're driving a car for a team, for a sponsor, for an owner that give you everything to win all the time. So to have Peak, and Brian Bolander is a car guy through and through. Brian is our liaison with Peak and Old World Industries. And to have him say, we want to do something special for John because he's done so much for Peak. How many sponsors do that? Literally give you your car back for a race and let you run a tribute to the greatest of all time.
And as you head into the U.S. Nationals, it's been a year since you got to get back in this car. Last time you only had 2 races. You had to go straight into countdown mode. Now you've had a full season. You get your car back just in time for the countdown. How excited are you to get to go run after this championship, and how fired up are you to be able to have a shot to go maybe try and beat Proc for that championship?
So everything you said is 100% true, and I agree with you. The answer is yes, 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 yes. But remember, when I talked about living in the moment here, we've got Indy before we have the countdown, right? And first thing we got at Indy is Friday night qualifying. It's one run under what should be maybe the best conditions of the weekend, although it's shaping up to be a pretty fast weekend. Then we've got Saturday, potentially 2 runs for the Mission Too Fast, Too Tasty race. Then we go into Sunday, potentially 3 runs for the All-Star Call-Out with funny cars. I never participated in it. It didn't exist when I was forced out of the seat in 2020 when the sponsorship ended. And after all that, you got Monday, 4 shots for the Wally Trophy for the U.S. Nationals. So I'm going to try to enjoy the moment, not get too far ahead of myself. The countdown's going to be weekends from now. This is Indy, and I'm here to do everything we can.
And you mentioned getting to run the U.S. Nationals, how important this race is. Some people like to argue that maybe Indy has lost that prestige over the years and it doesn't have that same big event feel that it once had. Hint, hint. Talk about how important the U.S. Nationals is to somebody like Jack Beckman.
So I grew up in Southern California, and I read about Indy, and I thought I kind of understood the history of it. It's a legacy race. And then I came out to Indy with the Frank Hawley School in 2003 and taught a class, and I looked at the track, and it wasn't the newest track, and the old girl was a little bit run down, and I thought, okay, well, I live right near Pomona, and it's older than Indy, and so what's the big deal? And then when I came out in 2004 to race my Super Comp car here, as soon as the gates open, as soon as the pits start filling up, as soon as the fans start coming in, you realize, okay, the race is longer than all the other ones, more qualifying runs than all the other ones. We're scheduled to run on a Monday, unlike any of the other ones. It's just different. It's different in a lot of aspects, and the better way to describe it is just bigger. If you look at the car count here, it's 50% bigger than the next race. It's not a coincidence that they pack this place, that they run more days, because it is Indy, because it's NHRA's first national event, because it's the big go. And somebody asked me, why do they call it the Big Go? And because it is. It's big, and you either would go east or you would go west, but you would go to Indy for the race.
All right, John, we're 24 hours away from the start of the U.S. Nationals. You had a bit of a special event here. You get to unveil an iconic body that dates back to the beginning of your career. Now to see this car back with the Peak branding on it, getting ready for the 71st edition of the U.S. Nationals. Talk about what today means to you as you get to see this car finally unveiled.
Well, Peak ran, that's the car I race, and other ones we have at the track. But this car was the original car. I went to Australia in '75. I've been on fire from here to Australia and back. I was on fire there, and when I came home, I burnt this car to the ground in Orange County. I ended up going to Paisano, and he sold me a brand new car, and life started all over again. Peak did the tribute to me with the specialty car. We're in Ray Hall's shop. Ray Hall makes money with all these cars that he rents places to people. Me, I just put my cars in there, and out in California, I've got like 80 of my historical cars, and in Indy. I've outgrown it already. But Graham's smart. He knows how to make money with his hot rods, and but gives people a great place to be and stay.
You talked about Peak being the ones behind this deal. They told me back at PRI in December their plans to want to do something like this. What does it mean to you to have a partner like Peak and OWI who is willing to go out there and change the way that their brand may look for a race in order to do something as cool as this, something that the fans have been clamoring for years?
Well, I got a lot of partners, of course, Peak and Old World Industries, but then I go back with Chevrolet and HendricksCars.com, he's with me, Monster Energy that Brittany drives, Cornwell Tools that Proc drives, and of course Beckman drives my Peak Chevrolet. So a lot of people on this car, Monster Energy, Brittany drives most of the time. Cornwell bought it here for this race. So I'm really lucky. Monster Energy, all these people have been with me a long time, and people keep re-signing. So I'm really lucky. And of course, the hard times that I went through, they kind of took me out of the seat, but couldn't ask for a better guy than Beckman. He can out-talk me. And of course, Proc, and then Brittany. Proc's won championships, so has Beckman. But Brittany's won 2 championships, but now she owns the speed record for women in a dragster, or the men. So I'm really proud of her and all my girls, Ashley and Courtney. So they all do a good job, and we're unveiling the car that this car I actually ran in Australia, and then that's the new version of it over there. So, but Monster Energy, all these people, Cornwell Tools, Peak, the list just goes on and on. So I'm excited to be a part of it.
You talked about, the performance that you've seen over the last year. It seems that when times get tough, you guys get tougher. From you rebounding to your accident, Brittany becoming the fastest woman in the history of the sport, Proc right behind her and winning a championship in his debut season, then Jack quickly acclimating himself to this team. How do you rate the toughness of not just these drivers, but this team to be able to persevere over everything that happened and still come out as one of the top dogs in the sport?
You gotta live it, and I do. See my phone ring? That was Cromwell from NHRA. But what I'm saying is, Beckman knew the routine. He's already a champion. He can out-talk me. Proc knows the routine. I was there when Proc was born. His dad was with me for years, and I knew he could drive a car because I had him in the funny car car. I had him in the dragsters, and we just made the transition. Did I think he would be this quick, that fast? Well, his dad and his brother, John, they made sure of it. They run my shops here in Indy. They run stuff for me. I really don't run it, but I love to watch it, and I love to be with them, so we just go from there. There might have been a lot of sponsors like Chevrolet and Monster Energy, Cornwell Tools, HenrichsCars.com. I mean, Monster Energy, the list goes on, and of course Peak. So I'm a lucky man.
You know, Indy has kind of in the past been somewhat designated as sort of a throwback race. Ron Capps said back when he unveiled the Don Perdome throwback that he wished Indy would kind of become a designated race for that. Do you agree with that? Should Indy be more of a throwback race, or do you like it better that this just kind of happens naturally the way it does?
Well, it's a happening. It's the race everybody goes to see. Everybody wants to race, and of course their schedule is busy, and NHRA is moving all the time, but they're doing a great job. And look at the press conference. I was not expecting a lot of people here, but it was a good turnout. I want to thank Ray Hall for his shop, and I learned a lot about you, Ray Hall, right here. He makes money everywhere he goes, you know, his dad's right next door with their Indy car. So, no, and I'm talking too much here. I apologize. But it's just, I really love it, and I'm lucky to still be here, to still be doing it, and still have the fans. And I get to go watch racing this weekend.
And to wrap this all up, as we talk about heading into Indianapolis, you know, the biggest race of the year, some people may not see it like that. They feel like the U.S. Nationals kind of has fallen off in a way and not become that icon, that marquee big race of the year that people think it once had. For someone like yourself who has been around the sport for so long and has chased the U.S. Nationals crown all your life, talk about what the Indianapolis and U.S. Nationals means to John Force.
Well, it's Big Daddy Don Garlett's always said, it's the big happening. It's what it's all about. He'd rather be here than anywhere else, and so would I, and so would all the drivers. This is the big one that pays the big money. You can win it. You can earn points for the countdown, even though Proc's locked it up. But if you look at the big picture, anybody wants to be in Indy. I came here to Indy, ran out of gas going in the parking lot. So that's the way you got to live it and love it. So you get a chance, talk to my other drivers. They'll bring you up on what's going on. I've been kind of out for about a year and a half, but I'm getting back in the groove, getting better.